Buju, wago shindigu migizi indodem, gazagasqua jimekag indunjaba. I'd like to share a little bit today about something I wrote about in my book, The Cultural Toolbox, Traditional Ojibwe Living in the Modern World. And in that book, I kind of speak to different dimensions of Ojibwe culture within the frame of four seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter, which correlate to four seasons in a person's life. You know, new life, babies, young age, summer, um, and then fall, kind of maturation, adulthood, and then winter is like elderhood. And in the section on fall, I speak to the story of my relationship with my son, Elias Pagwajinini. Elias is kind of middle of the pack with our very large family. We have 9 children, but we have a big blended family. And when he was just an infant in arms, I was in a crisis in my own life. My relationship with his mother failed. I ended up single parenting Elias and his older siblings, and it was a humbling time for me. The children were young. I had to decline speaking events and other kinds of work and just focus on keeping them fed and transported and taking care of their needs. I really relied a lot on our cultural teachings to help all of us through that time. And I remember in particular a couple of moments, like one, as we moved into our family's cabin, which is this little 24-foot by 24-foot structure. All the kids had to sleep in a row on the floor, and I had to watch out so I wasn't stepping on heads just trying to get to the bathroom. And when we moved in, we had a ceremony to bless our new home. And I'd been told by my elders to take a smaller eagle feather and bless that at the house blessing ceremony and hang it on the southwest corner of the house. It's kind of like a protection, a Passover if the Thunderbirds are coming around, there's inclement weather or something like that. And my son Elias was really just a toddler, learning how to speak and starting to move around. And he would, when it started to storm, he would run around the house outside and go look at that feather and make sure it was still there, and seemed to take some reassurance from it. And I remember another time for another ceremony that we do called a bear smoke, where we built a small wigwam and put offerings in there for each member of the family as a way to keep us all strong and united and things like that. That he would be running around playing in the woods, and he'd stop and he'd just kind of stare at the little wigwam, and then he'd smile and he'd take off running again. And he seemed to take reassurance from some of those ceremonial things that we were doing. At the same time, throughout his childhood, I can be a bit anxious and worried and things like that, and maybe a little more than most people. But I remember hanging on different moments. Like one time, we went to the all-you-can-eat buffets once in a while, and I would tell them put us in the back, far away from other humans. And usually my children would do something embarrassing, that one would go to the bathroom, and the bathroom was located at the front, and would just run through the whole restaurant screaming, "I took a crap! I took a crap!" And I'd be cowering in the back room. But one time we were taking Elias, we were leaving the buffet, and I was trying to get his coat on him, and he had his hands in fists, and he couldn't get them through there. And I said, "Oh, baby, what's in your hands?" And he said, I got the mac and cheese," and was trying to smuggle probably 2 cents worth of mac and cheese out of the buffet. And on the one hand, that was just hilarious. And on the other hand, I started to worry. What if he has food insecurities? Like, he's well fed, I'm taking care of him, but maybe he's thinking if he could lose, his mom, that he could lose anything, and maybe this is going to hurt him later in life, and being worried about those things. And as he got older into high school, there were other tests. The pandemic hit. He was a very outgoing and social kid who was involved in show choir, kind of our equivalent of Glee Club or something like that. And I think he I worried that, as his social life was getting kind of clamped down through, COVID response and things like that, that it would also affect him. And this was also occurring right during the time when it was time to think about what's next. Are you going to go to college and things like that? And I worried, would he deny himself opportunity for familiarity to stay close? Or would he, self sabotage on his way out the door? He'd always been kind of an academic superstar, but, you know, he was hitting his teenager phase and coming to maturation as an adult. And so eventually, as I pressed him for a plan, and I've always had the view as a parent that my definitions of success should not be imposed on my children, but I should listen to their self-stated ideas about what they want to do with their lives. And my job is to support them, coach them if they're open to that, and help them reach their self-stated goals. But eventually he did. He said, I want to go to college. He said he wanted to go to Dartmouth, which is a really great Ivy League school that has some strong native programs. And so I said, well, of course, I support you. And it's an extremely competitive school. There's no guarantee of getting in. And I remember him writing his essays. And in there, he spoke to all of these things that I had been worrying about throughout his childhood. He spoke about loss. He spoke about historical trauma. He spoke about times when he was hurt by the absence, for example, of his mother, times when he was so detached he almost didn't care. But he put it all into perspective and said, the cycles of trauma and loss end with me. And it was such a beautiful and empowered piece of writing. Some weeks later, we're all gathered in the kitchen as he got his letter and found out that indeed he got into Dartmouth. And I, of course, was a crying, blubbering mess at the receipt of this incredible good news.
Let's go! Oh, I'm so happy for you. Oh, my boy. I didn't think I was gonna make it. Oh, I miss you. Let's go! Come here, Evan!
Recently, I had a chance to bring my son out to college and see him settled in his new space, and a chance also to think about all of it. And, in writing about the season of fall, which is maturation and, even mature relationships between partners and between adult children and their parents and things like that, spring is a time of new life and new growth. Summer is burning long and hot as we grow and emerge and try to find ourselves. But fall is a season of harvest. Things turn red and gold. I certainly feel like that.